I squinted my eyes, trying to read what the screen was telling me. All the mixed colors were so confusing, and I had hardly learned how to properly read those strange lines yet. I focused, trying to remember the letters I had learned in class and how to pronounce them. Waddle? I mumbled, not really understanding what the word meant, or even if I had got it right. How do you get Mark confused with Waddle? My big brother snatched the DS out of my hands. Apparently I didn't get the word right. Why are you even looking at my trainer card? I opened my mouth, having not yet thought of a response, but wanting to look smart, but he cut me off anyways. Whatever. He fumbled around with the DS, pressing buttons in a mystical pattern I couldn't imagine ever perfecting. After a minute, he gave it back to me. I eagerly clutched the game. The character was standing in the middle of the dirt road once more, ready for battle. I was relieved as I didn't really know how to exit out of that trainer card, as my big brother put it. Just be sure not to mess anything up, you idiot. I gasped another shock. He had said the I word. You weren't supposed to say that. Mom and Dad aren't here. They can't hear me all the way at the grocery store. I can say all I want. He taunted as he resumed playing his DSi. I scowled at his despicable behavior and instead turned my attention back to my game. Or to be more precise, his game. I wasn't allowed to have a video game of my own yet, considering how I could barely read. All other thoughts were pushed to the back of my mind. I started walking around in a patch of grass closest to me. I started thinking about how this HeartGold game was so fun, even though I couldn't understand what everyone was saying. Just as I was thinking about how I could plead to my parents to buy my own game, the screen flashed and I entered a battle. The Pokemon that appeared on the other side of the screen looked absolutely adorable. Plus, it was pink, my favorite color. It sparkled and I let out a squeal. I found a Whopper! My big brother sighed and shook his head in a "what am I going to do with you" kind of manner, then spoke. Oh, you Dumbo. It's Whooper, not Whopper. I huffed. Whatever, and went back to the battle, eyes gleaming. I was controlling some ugly rat thing that had the number 10. The pink Whooper had the number 6. I clicked on the word that started with F, since I knew that would let me attack, even though I didn't know how to pronounce it. Alright, gotta use a not really strong attack to make it weak. I felt proud of myself for at least knowing a little bit on how to control the game. I clicked on cut since I really didn't think it was tough. Plus, I could actually read it. Rat-faced used cut. He attacked the pink Whooper. Critical hit. I didn't know what the word meant, but I gasped when the pink Whooper's health bar was red. I knew that it meant it was about to die. It attacked the rat with water gun, but it didn't hurt him that much. I clicked on the bag option and looked around at all choices until I found the one with the red and white ball picture. I selected it and threw it at the Whooper. Shake, shake, shake. Sweat started to pour down my forehead in suspense. Click. Yes! Yes! I jumped for joy when I saw that I successfully caught my pink Whooper. I started moving my feet and waggling my arms, doing a little dance of my own I made up as I went along. I stopped when I dropped the DS, barely catching it in time before it collided with the floor. Hey, watch it! I told you to be careful with that. Man, you're so stupid sometimes. My brother criticized me. Well, sorry, I'm just really happy that I caught a pink Whopper, I retorted back. It's Whooper dipped... Wait, a pink one? They're supposed to be blue, not pink. Give me that. He reached out and snatched the game from me once more before I could react. His eyes grew wide as he stared at the game. Whoa! You actually caught a shiny. Yeah, it did sparkle when I found it. I want to name it Shelly, I shouted out to him, despite him being able to hear me clearly enough. Shelly? That's a stupid name, but since you caught it, I guess just this once. Plus, I can change it back later. He pressed some more buttons, and in a flash, I had the game back. I grinned maniacally when I saw the pink creature standing behind the trainer. I pressed the A button and talked to it. A heart popped about its head, and some words appeared. Whoa! Shelly hugged you! I could only understand the word hugged, but that sent me into a fit of giggles. She's so cute, I spoke to myself. Who? Oh, that Whooper? It's a boy, you know, my big brother informed me, never looking up from his game. I froze in place, my giggles quickly dead. It's a boy? My brother mindlessly nodded his head as a response, still focused on his game. I looked back at the Whooper and just stared dumbly at it for a moment. Ew, that's so gross. It's a boy and it's pink. My brother seemed to just ignore me. I clicked on the button with the green ball and switched to the rat instead of Shelly. I was utterly disappointed and my heart sunk. Shelly was so cute, but I didn't want it if it was going to be a boy. I walked back into the grass and tried to find another one to catch, which hopefully would be a girl this time. The screen flashed and I entered another battle. This time another Whooper appeared, but instead of being pink and sparkly, it was blue and purple. So this one looks like a boy. Maybe it is a boy. My logic seemed perfectly flawless at the time, so I decided to catch this one also. I made the ugly rat use cut again, which didn't hurt as much as last time. The Whooper attacked with Tail Whip, which didn't do anything except make the rat turn a different color. Afterwards, I immediately went in the bag and threw another red and white sphere at it. Shake, 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 click. I didn't dance or shout for joy this time, as this victory didn't seem as sweet, but I still felt a bit pleased nonetheless. I handed the DS to my big brother, who unwillingly put down his DSi and accepted it. I caught another Whooper, I informed him, and I want it to be named, I hadn't really thought of a name to give him yet. My brother interrupted all possible thoughts of concentration. It's a girl, not a boy. It took a moment for the words to set in, and when they did, I started to fume in anger. What? But it looks like a boy. It has to be a boy. My big brother pressed some buttons on the DS, oblivious to my obvious unsatisfaction. Here, I named it Shelly for you. Now don't bug me again, he told me strictly as he handed the game back. I unwillingly took it back. The new Shelly was standing behind the trainer, bobbing around happily. I talked to her and a heart appeared above her heads, along with the same words as before with the other Shelly. Blech, I like that rat thing better than this thing. I switched out the rat for new Shelly, happy to have those two things out of my sight. A wild Shelly appeared. A Pokemon appeared on the other side of the screen that was most definitely not normal. It looked as if someone had ripped apart different body segments of a normal and pink Whooper and pieced them together with strings of skin. Half of its head was shiny, the other half normal. Pieces of its own flesh were tied around them to keep them held together. Same for its torso, feet, and tail. Not to mention that it was bloody. Look, we're everything you wanted. The letters were in blue and pink, making them a tad difficult to read. That didn't matter because I couldn't understand the sentence, and that mattered even less as I was too busy panicking at the sight before me. My fingers trembled and my head started to get sweaty. After a moment of sheer panic, I remembered the run button and how it lets you escape. I pressed down on the button as if my life depended on it, nearly bending the touch screen. You still don't love us? I quickly zoomed through the text without taking a second glance. It went back to the character in the main world, standing in the grass with the rat. I breathed heavily, the image of that Whooper still fresh on my mind. My breath started to fog up the screen, so I mindlessly wiped it off. I couldn't concentrate and all my thoughts were uncontrollable fear. The DS started to slip out of my hands, but I quickly clutched it tighter. I decided I would try one of my techniques that I save for occasions like this. I closed my eyes, scrunched up my face, and blocked out everything that happened. I instead thought of cute things like kittens and puppies, and getting my own dog one day and running around with it, eating ice cream, and how sweet it is, how it drastically cools me off on a hot summer day, and how summer itself was just around the corner and all the swimming I'd be able to do. After a few minutes of thinking those things, I felt a little better. Eventually, I felt good enough to open my eyes again and look at the game. I carefully opened my eyelid, a bit wary as to what I might see. The Wooper from the previous battle was standing in front of the character, bouncing happily. Behind it lay the ugly rat, a bloody, torn-up mess. His head was ripped off and a crimson red matted his fur. It twitched and squirmed a little, but couldn't stand up. My heartbeat started to pick up again, as did my breathing. I talked to the Wooper. "Look, we killed that ugly rat for you." The text was still in pink and blue, and the only word that truly registered in my mind was killed, and that word scared me. I just stared blankly at the screen, fear crawling through my skin. "You don't like it? We'll do better." I didn't even try to understand that sentence, as I wouldn't be able to if I tried. Relief unlike ever before me washed over when the screen faded to black. I sighed and brushed the sweat off my forehead. My heart skipped a beat when the screen on the DS flickered back into life, as I thought it was turned off. I examined the screen, and at first I didn't notice anything besides that zombie Wooper standing next to the character. It bounced up and down, and a happy icon popped above its head. It walked into the grass, and the character followed behind. They walked around in circles for a few more seconds until more words appeared. "We killed all the Pokemon. No more annoying battles." There was that word again. Killed. I noticed there was some flecks of scarlet in the grass, and in one corner there was a Rattata hidden, unmoving. The Wooper bounced around happily for a moment, then stopped. "Still? We can do better." The screen went to black again, but turned back before I could fully react. It still looked the same as before. The Wooper started to walk away, and the character followed. After a few steps, they encountered a green hat on the ground with a dark red stain on it. The two continued walking on down the dirt path, finding more hats, shoes, and even a human limb or two. Eventually, they reached the outskirts of Violet City. No more trainers either. It ran into the city, and my character ran along behind. Inside the town, there were several blood splatters along the walls and buildings. The Wooper and the character ran into the orange building, which was the place where you healed your Pokemon at. I could care less, still stricken from all I was seeing. Inside there was no one, not even the pink nurse lady. Of course, more Scarlet Red was there to add to the atmosphere. "No more waiting to heal your Pokemon. You don't even need Pokemon anymore." I checked out the character's Pokemon, and sure enough, they were all gone. I exited out, and the Wooper was bouncing up and down cheerfully next to the trainer, if anything a little too optimistic. It ran out of the building, the character following behind. They ran across town to the blue store building where you bought items. Inside, shelves and items were toppled over. By some strand of ultimate luck, the guy you talked to actually buy items was still alive. I was prompted to do so by a nudge from Wooper. I hesitantly walked over to the character, a bit afraid what would happen if I didn't greet him. He didn't greet me, just took me straight to the item selection. All of the items were free. I didn't choose any, as I wasn't really in the mood for shopping at the time. I exited out, and the Wooper started bouncing around. "Free items! No more money needed!" It ran around in circles, then practically flew out the door. Before the character could move, the screen faded to black. It took a few minutes for it to come back on. When it did, the character was still standing in the store. The Wooper ran back in, jumped up and down, and then ran back out. The character followed behind this time. Outside, it was total chaos. Different buildings and landmarks from all different sections of the game were together in that one city. Colors clashed and glitched squares were everywhere. Textures mixed and welded together, making it difficult to tell one surface from another. "Everything is in one place. No need to walk around." The Wooper ran in circles around the character, then abruptly stopped, an exclamation point popping above its head. The screen faded to black once more, but came back even faster. This time there was only darkness, the character and the Wooper being the only things visible. "There's nothing. No need to worry about anything." It bounced up and down with a happy icon. Perfect! It ran all around the character, spinning, jumping. My hand shook and so did the DS. My thoughts were slowly starting to connect again, and I was finally able to focus clearly. My brain was able to process everything that just happened. That was when a warm tear rolled down my cheek, and I started to sniffle. The whooper stopped its joyous little dance and turned to the character. You still don't love us? I could care less about what it said as more tears started cascading down my face. In a few moments, I was all out crying. Before I knew it, the DS was snatched out of my hands. My big brother was looking at me with a worried expression. What happened? What the heck are you crying for? I tried to respond, but my words would only come out as sobs. He groaned and instead turned his attention to his DS, the one I had been playing. He pressed the power button as it was apparently turned off. He messed around with it for a couple of minutes and, with a shrug, turned it back off. I don't know what you did, but you better stop crying all over the place before Mom and Dad get home. I don't want to get in trouble for something I didn't do. He turned back to his DSi and left me sitting on the floor, a sobbing mess. After a while, I was mostly able to regain control of myself. I was still sniffling a little, but fairly good overall. Eventually, our parents came home from the store. I don't think I'd ever been so excited to see them in my life. I ran up to them and gave them a big hug. Whoa, didn't think you'd be so excited to see us, my dad chuckled. Hey, we got you something, my mom teased. My ears immediately perked up. I needed something to cheer me up after what had just happened. You said you wanted a video game of your own, so we got you this. My mom reached into my grocery bag. I jumped up and down, eager to see what gift I was receiving. She dramatically pulled whatever it was out, and it turned out to be Pokemon HeartGold. I screamed my lungs out and fled into the kitchen. I ran to my room and slammed the door shut, causing a picture in the hallway to fall and break. My parents stared back at me, completely bewildered. Well, that went well, my dad muttered. Maybe she was so excited she couldn't handle it? My mom offered weakly. From the living room, I burst out laughing, having watched the whole scene. Looks like one extra game for me then. I spoke to no one in particular except myself. I reached for my own DS, feeling a little bit grateful that my little sister didn't want her HeartGold, as she would have to use my DS and I didn't want her breaking it. I started to play my own HeartGold to double check and make sure she hadn't messed up everything. When it started up, a pink whooper was bouncing playfully behind my trainer. Oh, that Shelly thing. I'll screw around with it later, I muttered to myself. I switched out Shelly number 1 for my Eradicate, but when I went back to the overworld, Shelly number 2 was idling behind my trainer. A bit confused, but mostly irritated, I switched out Shelly number 2 for my Eradicate. This time it finally worked. I started walking down the route, but a text box stopped me mid-step. Shelly has run away. Shelly has run away. Hey, what gives? I checked my Pokemon and both Shellys were missing. Sighing in frustration, I exited out and started walking down the route again. I walked into a patch of tall grass by accident, and the screen had flashed. A battle started.